I kept the note, he said hoarsely, sliding a yellowed scrap of paper across the table. Chelsea's breath shattered. Because the handwriting was hers, and the promise was one she never thought the world would let him keep. The meal cost Chelsea everything. Not figuratively. Literally. It was Tuesday. Late October. The kind of cold that crawled under your sleeves and stayed. Chelsea was 10 thin, wearing a jacket 2 sizes too small because it had belonged to her cousin first. Inside her backpack was the only food she would have until night. A peanut butter sandwich. 1 apple. A folded note with her name on it so no one would steal it. She saw him through the chain-link fence behind Jefferson Middle. A boy. Maybe 11. Asian. Too still. Most kids ran. Yelled. Threw wrappers. He didn't move. He stood there like he was waiting for permission to exist. Chelsea stared longer than she meant to. Her friend nudged her. Why you looking like that? He's hungry, Chelsea said. So? That's not our problem. Chelsea didn't answer. She was already unzipping her bag. On the other side of the fence, Han Jun-seo felt his legs shaking. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His stomach burned so badly it made sounds he couldn't control. He hated that. Hated being loud. Hated being seen. A teacher had chased him off twice already. Then the girl walked toward him. Not fast. Not scared. She crouched and slid her lunch through the fence. You can have it, she said quickly, like she didn't want to give him time to refuse. I'm Chelsea. Jun-seo stared. For me. His English bent around the words. She nodded. Yeah. Eat. He grabbed the sandwich and ate it too fast. Peanut butter stuck to the roof of his mouth. His hands shook. He didn't care. When he finished, he realized he was crying. I'm Jun-seo, he said. Thank you. That day, Chelsea went hungry. She didn't tell her mother. Or her aunt. Or anyone. The next day, she did it again. Then again. 5 days became 2 weeks. 2 weeks became months. Chelsea's family noticed the missing food. They worked extra shifts. Bought cheaper groceries. Never asked questions. Somehow, there was always just enough for her to give away. Sometimes Jun-seo was bruised. Sometimes sick. Once, so weak Chelsea thought he might fall over. On the coldest day of winter, she brought him soup in a cracked thermos and a piece of paper folded small. What's that? He asked. She hesitated. Then handed it to him. Inside, written in crooked pencil, were words she'd practiced twice before daring to write. When you grow up, don't forget me. I believe in you. Chelsea. Jun-seo folded it carefully. Like it was fragile. Like it mattered. I won't forget, he said. His voice shook. I promise. That was the day foster care finally found him. The last time Chelsea saw Jun-seo, he stood by the bus with nothing but a borrowed coat and that folded note in his pocket. When I'm rich, he said suddenly, panic and hope colliding in his eyes, I'll come back. I'll marry you. Chelsea laughed because she didn't know what else to do. You don't make promises like that, she said. I do, he said. This one. The bus doors closed. Chelsea stood there until the street went quiet. She didn't know she'd just fed the boy who would haunt her for the rest of her life. If you've ever given something you couldn't afford to lose, stay with this story. And if moments like this still matter to you, subscribing, liking, or leaving a thought behind is a way of saying, I see it too. Money came. Fulfillment didn't. Han Jun-seo woke up every morning at exactly 5:40 a.m. Not because he needed to, but because sleep never stayed. The penthouse overlooked Seoul's Han River, glass and steel stretching endlessly below. The bed cost more than most people's yearly salary. The silence was absolute. No photos. No warmth. No proof anyone belonged here. His phone buzzed. Assistant, board meeting moved to 8:30. Chairman wants you present. Investors from Chicago landed last night. Jun-seo typed back one word. Fine. He didn't feel rich. He felt finished. In the kitchen, a chef prepared breakfast waited untouched. He poured coffee, took one sip, then walked away. Hunger never left him, it just changed shape. He opened the safe built into the wall. Inside were passports, legal documents, contracts worth millions, and one thing that didn't belong. A folded, yellowed piece of paper, edges soft from being opened too many times. He unfolded it carefully, like always. When you grow up, don't forget me. I believe in you. Chelsea. The handwriting was childish, uneven, permanent. June SEO pressed his thumb against the paper. I didn't forget, he whispered to an empty room. I just didn't know how to come back. He hadn't become rich quickly. He'd been hungry again after foster care. Slept in his car. Took jobs no one wanted. Studied until his eyes burned. Failed. Got back up. Failed better. Every time he wanted to quit, he thought of food. Not luxury food. Not restaurants. A peanut butter sandwich. Soup in a cracked thermos. A girl who gave what she couldn't afford. That memory built an empire. And still, it wasn't enough. Chicago smelled the same. Cold air. Exhaust. Something fried drifting from somewhere down the street. June SEO stepped out of the black car and adjusted his coat. His team surrounded him instantly, assistants, advisors, security. Mr. Han once said, "You don't usually attend these events personally." I know, June SEO replied. The building ahead was modest. A fundraising dinner for a struggling neighborhood center. Not glamorous. Folding tables. Paper programs. He didn't know why he was here. Only that the note in his pocket had felt heavier all day. Inside, conversations paused when he entered. People whispered, "That's him. Korean billionaire. What's he doing here?" June SEO barely heard them. He scanned the room without realizing he was searching. Then, he froze. Across the room, balancing two plates, was a woman with familiar eyes. Chelsea. Not the girl. The woman. Same posture. Same way of moving, like she expected to carry more than her share. Same mouth pressed into a polite smile that hid exhaustion. She laughed at something someone said. The sound hit him like a punch. No. It couldn't be. 22 years disappeared in one breath. Chelsea Wells felt it before she saw him. That prickle at the back of her neck. That strange sense of being watched by the past. She turned. Their eyes met. The room didn't disappear. It detonated. June SEO took a step forward without thinking. Chelsea dropped one of the plates. It shattered. She whispered. I know you. Her voice was older. Stronger. But it was hers. He reached into his jacket with shaking hands and pulled out the folded paper. Chelsea, he said, his voice breaking despite every boardroom he'd ever conquered. You fed me. Silence crashed over the room. Chelsea stared at the note. At the handwriting. Her handwriting. Oh my God, she breathed. June SEO. He nodded. I told you I'd come back. Tears filled her eyes, not soft tears. Angry ones. Confused ones. You don't get to just say that, she said. You disappeared. I tried to come sooner, he said quickly. Every year I thought, next year I'll be enough. People were staring now. Phones out. Whispers spreading. Chelsea swallowed. You look different. So do you, he said. You're beautiful. She laughed once, sharp. Don't. Then she looked at the note again. You kept this. He nodded. Every day. Her hands trembled. Chelsea straightened. This isn't the place, she said. Not here. I know, June SEO replied. Just, please. 5 minutes. She studied him. The suit. The confidence. The boy she once fed buried somewhere inside the man. 5, she said. Then I'm going back to work. They stepped into the hallway. June SEO exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 22 years. I looked for you, he said. I swear I did. Chelsea folded her arms. So did I. The words hurt more than anything. I never stopped believing you mattered, she continued. But I stopped believing the promise. June SEO nodded. I earned that. Silence stretched. Then Chelsea asked the question that mattered. Why are you really here? He held up the note. Because I couldn't build a life that made sense without finding the person who saved mine. Her eyes softened, just a little. That doesn't mean you get me, she said. I know, he said. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for a chance to sit across from you and eat a meal. Like before. Just slower. Chelsea hesitated. Then quietly, one meal. Relief crashed through him. One, he agreed. No promises. She gave a small, sad smile. Good, she said. Because I don't believe those anymore. Money complicates what memory made simple. Chelsea chose the diner. Not the nice one. Not downtown. A narrow place on 63rd Street with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted burned no matter how much cream you added. This is okay, she asked, already sliding into the booth. June SEO nodded. Perfect. It wasn't. He noticed everything immediately, the way the waitress glanced at his watch, the way a man at the counter stared too long at his coat, the way Chelsea's shoulders tensed like she was bracing for disappointment. They ordered. Chelsea ordered eggs and toast. June SEO ordered the same. The food arrived fast. Cheap. Familiar. For a moment, neither of them ate. You don't look hungry, Chelsea said. I am, he replied. Just not for food. She snorted softly. Figures. Silence pressed in. You're rich, she said finally, not looking at him. Yes. Like, rich. Yes. Chelsea wrapped her hands around her mug. Then why me? June SEO blinked. What do you mean? She looked up, eyes sharp. Why come back now? Why show up in my life after 22 years looking like you stepped out of a magazine? Because I kept my word. No, she said, shaking her head. You kept your version of it. That promise wasn't fair. He leaned forward. I never meant to. You were a starving kid, she cut in. You didn't owe me your future. I know, he said quietly. That's why I don't see it as debt. Chelsea laughed, bitter. Everything about you screams power now. Money. Control. Access. You don't understand how terrifying that is. June SEO stiffened. I'd never use it against you. I know, she said. That's the problem. You wouldn't even realize when you were doing it. She gestured around them. This place. This is my life. I count tips. I choose between groceries and gas some weeks. You could change all of that with one swipe of a card. He swallowed. I wouldn't do anything you didn't want. That's not how imbalance works, she said softly. It leaks into everything. Their food sat untouched. Chelsea pushed her plate away. I fed you because you were hungry. Not because I wanted this. What is this? He asked. She hesitated. Hope. Expectations. A fairy tale. June SEO reached into his pocket, pulled out the folded note. I don't see a fairy tale, he said. I see a kid who was told he mattered once. And a woman who taught him how to survive. Chelsea's eyes flicked to the paper, then away. Don't, she said. Don't use that. I'm not using it, he said. I'm honoring it. She stood abruptly. I need air. Outside, the cold slapped hard. Chelsea wrapped her arms around herself. June SEO followed but kept distance, like he was afraid one wrong step would break something. You know what happened after you left? She asked. He shook his head. I waited, she said. Not like a fool. Just. I kept space in my head for you. And every year it got harder to explain why. I'm sorry, he said. I dated men who wanted to save me, she continued. Men who resented me. Men who disappeared. Every time I thought, at least June SEO was honest about leaving. That cut. I didn't come back to ruin your life, he said. I came back because mine never started. Chelsea turned to him, eyes shining. Then start it without me. Silence. You don't mean that, he said. I do, she whispered. I need to know you're real now, not just a boy who survived because of me. He nodded slowly. Then let me earn that. How? One meal at a time, he said. No money. No fixing. Just showing up. Chelsea searched his face. People like you don't know how to do that, she said. I learned from the best, he replied. A beat. Then she sighed. I'm not promising anything. I know, he said. Neither am I. She hesitated, then said quietly, next time, we split the bill. A small smile broke through his fear. Deal. If you've ever pushed someone away not because you didn't care, but because you cared too much, this part probably hurt. Stay with it. Stories like this only work if someone's willing to sit through the discomfort. If that's you, leave a trace, a like, a thought, or a quiet subscription to say you're still here. Chelsea turned to leave. Chelsea, Junesio said. She paused. I'm glad you didn't forget me, she said. I'm just not ready to remember us yet. And she walked away. Junesio stood there alone, the note warm in his pocket, realizing something for the first time since becoming rich. Money couldn't buy forgiveness. And love would cost him far more than he'd ever earned. Avoidance fails. Hunger doesn't. Chelsea didn't plan to see him again that week. Life made the decision for her. The diner's fridge died overnight. Everything spoiled. The manager cut shifts. Chelsea picked up a temporary catering job for a corporate luncheon downtown. One day, decent pay, no questions. She showed up early. Hair pulled back. Black slacks. Neutral face. Then she saw the logo on the glass doors. Han Group, private event. Her stomach dropped. She almost walked out. Almost. Inside, staff rushed. Trays clattered. Someone barked orders. Chelsea tied her apron tighter and kept her head down. Coffee service goes to conference B, a supervisor said. And move please, he's coming through. Chelsea turned with a tray of cups. And collided with him. Coffee sloshed. A cup tipped. Junesio caught it before it spilled. Muscle memory from a life of catching things before they broke. Chelsea, he breathed. She froze. I didn't know. I know, he said quickly. I didn't arrange this. They stood too close. Too familiar. Too public. A dozen eyes watched. Chelsea stepped back first. I'm working. So am I, he said. I'll stay out of your way. She nodded, relieved, and angry that relief came at all. Minutes later, the supervisor hissed, Who did you spill on? No one, Chelsea said. Junesio glanced at the tray. She didn't spill, he said calmly. She prevented it. The supervisor blinked. Right. Fine. Just finish service. Chelsea shot him a look. You didn't need to do that. I know, he said. I wanted to. She moved on. For the next hour, they orbited each other, never touching, always aware. Junesio listened to presentations without hearing them. Chelsea refilled cups she didn't remember emptying. At lunch, catering staff ate leftovers in a side room. Chelsea opened a foil-wrapped sandwich. Peanut butter. She laughed under her breath. Of course. Junesio appeared in the doorway, hesitant. May I? She sighed. Sit. 5 minutes. He sat across from her. The table was narrow. The memory was not. You always ate slow, she said before she could stop herself. He smiled faintly. So I wouldn't look desperate. You were, she said gently. So were you, he replied. You just hit it better. Silence. He slid something across the table, not the note. A different paper. Fresh. Folded once. What's this? She asked. I wrote it today, he said. You don't have to read it. She didn't open it. Why write it at all? Because last time, words saved me, he said. This time they're for me. A beat. Chelsea took a bite of the sandwich. Chewed. Swallowed. You can't keep showing up like this, she said. It's not fair. I know, he said. Tell me where to stand. She met his eyes. Stand still. He nodded. Okay. Her phone buzzed. The supervisor waved. Break over. Chelsea stood. This doesn't change anything. I know, he said again. Thank you for sitting. She paused. You still eat too fast. He smiled. Some habits survive. As she walked away, Junesio unfolded the paper he'd written and added one line at the bottom. Small, careful, honest. I will wait until you don't have to. Chelsea finished her shift without looking back. But when she reached her locker, she found the folded paper waiting on top. She didn't open it. She took it home. Some kindnesses cost more than the giver ever admits. Chelsea didn't open the paper that night. She put it on the kitchen counter, face down, like it might burn her if she looked too closely. Her apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. She reheated leftovers she barely tasted and sat at the small table where everything important in her life seemed to happen. She told herself she was tired. She told herself tomorrow was soon enough. But the paper waited. So did the past. Chelsea finally picked it up with both hands. The fold was neat. Careful. Like he'd taken his time. She unfolded it slowly. Inside, the handwriting was adult, but restrained, like someone afraid of saying too much. I don't want you to owe me anything. I don't want to be your rescue or your regret. I just want to be honest where I once had nothing. I will wait until you don't have to. Her chest tightened. She sat back, staring at the words until they blurred. He hadn't asked her for love. Or forgiveness. Or even hope. Just permission to stay still. Chelsea folded the paper again and pressed it to her forehead. You're making this hard, she whispered to no one. Across the city, Junesio stood in his kitchen, staring at an empty plate. He hadn't eaten dinner. He hadn't meant to write the note. It had just happened. The words came out the way hunger used to, urgent, unpolished, necessary. He opened the drawer where he kept the old note. Chelsea's note. The one that survived foster homes, cars, borrowed rooms, and success that never quite fit. He laid the two papers side by side. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He spoke out loud. You don't know what you paid, he said quietly. The truth came out 3 days later. Not because Chelsea asked. Because she overheard. She was back at the diner, early morning shift, pouring coffee when two women at the counter started talking about an article they'd read online. That Korean CEO, one said. The one who used to be homeless. Chelsea froze. Yeah, the other replied. They said he almost died as a kid. Malnutrition. Exposure. Spent months in and out of clinics. Chelsea's hand tightened around the pot. What saved him? The first woman asked. The second shrugged. Some social worker said he survived because someone kept feeding him consistently. Protein. Warm food. Long enough for his body to stabilize. Chelsea's stomach dropped. She set the pot down too hard. Coffee sloshed. Consistently. Long enough. She hadn't known. Not really. She'd thought she was helping. She hadn't known she was keeping him alive. Her break came 10 minutes later. She didn't sit. She didn't eat. She grabbed her coat and walked, fast, breath shallow, hand shaking. She didn't know where she was going until she was there. Junesio opened the door in shirt sleeves, startled. Chelsea. She walked past him without waiting for permission. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded. He closed the door slowly. Tell you what? That I wasn't just being nice, she said, voice cracking. That I was the difference between you living and... She stopped herself. Junesio swallowed. Because you already gave enough. That wasn't your call, she snapped. He didn't argue. He just nodded once. You're right. Silence crashed between them. Chelsea looked around his apartment. Still bare. Still careful. Still lonely. You were dying, she said softly. Yes. And I went hungry, she said. A lot. His eyes filled instantly. I know. She stared at him. How? Because you were always tired, he said. Because your hands shook sometimes. Because one day you fainted at the fence and told me you were just clumsy. Chelsea's breath hitched. You knew, she whispered. I knew you were paying, he said. I just didn't know how much. Tears slid down her face, uninvited. My aunt sold her ring, Chelsea said suddenly. To buy groceries that winter. I didn't know until years later. She told me like it was nothing. Junessio crossed the room but stopped short of touching her. Chelsea. My family paid so I could keep feeding you, she continued. And I never told you because I didn't want it to matter. He shook his head slowly, reverently. It mattered. It just wasn't a transaction. They stood there, the truth heavy but clarifying. That's why the promise scared me, Chelsea said. Because I didn't save you to be rewarded. I saved you because you were hungry. I know, he said. That's why I didn't come back with gifts. She laughed weakly. You came back with yourself. Yes, he said. Is that worse? She wiped her face. I don't know yet. He nodded. That's fair. A long silence followed. Not awkward. Not safe either. Chelsea finally spoke. You can stay still. He looked up. What? I read the note, she said. You can wait. But not forever. Hope flickered, dangerous, contained. I wouldn't expect forever, he said. She hesitated, then added, but I want to know everything. No more protected truths. I can do that, he said. Even the parts that don't make me look good. That's the only kind that count, she replied. She turned toward the door, then paused. And Junessio? Yes. You don't owe me your life, she said. But you don't get to pretend it didn't intertwine with mine. He smiled softly. I wouldn't dare. She left. This time, he didn't feel abandoned. He felt, allowed. Closeness, earned carefully. They didn't rush. That surprised them both. Chelsea didn't stop guarding her heart, but she stopped locking it. Junessio didn't chase, but he showed up consistently, the way food had once shown up when it mattered. They met in ordinary places. A laundromat on Sunday mornings. A bookstore with crooked shelves and a bell that rang too loud. A late-night noodle spot where no one cared who he was. He paid. She paid. They argued once about it and then laughed because it felt like progress. One evening, Chelsea cooked. Her kitchen was small, counters cluttered with spices in mismatched jars. Junessio stood awkwardly at the sink, sleeves rolled, washing rice under her direction like it was a sacred task. Not like that, she said. Gentler. He adjusted immediately. Like this. She nodded. You learn fast. I had a good teacher, he said. They ate quietly at first. The food was simple, rice, vegetables, a little chicken. Nothing fancy. Everything warm. This tastes like safety, he said softly. Chelsea looked at him. That's the highest compliment I've ever received. Later, they sat on the floor with their backs against the couch, sharing stories without pressure to perform. He told her about the nights he slept in his car. She told him about the job she quit because they wanted her kindness without respecting her limits. At one point, Chelsea reached into a drawer and pulled out an old creased notebook. What's that? He asked. My promises, she said. I used to write them down so I wouldn't forget who I wanted to be. She flipped to a page near the front. Written in pencil, faded but legible. Don't look away. Junessio swallowed. That's what you did, he said. She shrugged. Sometimes it's the only brave thing you can afford. They sat there, shoulders touching. Not dramatic. Not rushed. Real. When he left that night, he didn't kiss her. At the door, he hesitated. May I? She considered him, really considered him. Then nodded. The kiss was brief. Careful. A promise without words. After he left, Chelsea leaned against the door, heart racing, not with fear this time, but with recognition. The next weeks stitched them closer. They shared meals. Shared silence. Shared the comfort of not having to explain themselves. One night, Chelsea fell asleep on his shoulder while they watched a movie she'd already seen twice. He didn't move for an hour, afraid to break the moment. Another night, he admitted, I don't know how to need people without feeling weak. Chelsea replied, then we'll practice. He smiled. Together. Yes, she said. Together. But even as warmth settled in, something brittle formed underneath. Because peace never lasts without being tested. And both of them knew it. What breaks isn't love. It's trust. It didn't explode the way Chelsea expected. It cracked. Quietly. Precisely. Right along the fault line she'd been pretending wasn't there. The call came while they were grocery shopping. Junesio's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and stepped a few feet away. Chelsea watched him from the produce aisle, watched the way his posture shifted, shoulders tightening, jaw setting. The man who negotiated billion-dollar deals was suddenly very still. Yes, he said. Pause. No, that wasn't. Another pause. Longer. I understand. He hung up and turned back to her, face carefully neutral. What was that? She asked. Nothing, he said too quickly. Work. Chelsea didn't push. She put apples into the cart, one by one, like she was counting breaths. But the air between them had changed. That night, she found out why. She was closing up the diner when Lena, her coworker, slid a phone across the counter. You didn't tell me you were famous adjacent, Lena said. Chelsea frowned. What? Girl, Lena said gently. You're everywhere. Chelsea looked down. Her chest went hollow. She scrolled. Photos. Her at the fundraiser. Them walking out together. A quote, anonymous source close to Han Group, talking about a long-standing promise and a woman who inspired his success. Chelsea felt sick. This wasn't just exposure. This was narrative. She didn't read the comments. She didn't need to. She locked up early and walked. Not home. To him. Junesio opened the door and knew immediately. You saw it, he said. You let them write about me, Chelsea said, voice flat. Too calm. You let them turn my life into a headline. I didn't authorize that, he said quickly. I shut it down as soon as I could. But it already happened, she snapped. Do you know what it feels like to see your kindness turned into a press angle? He stepped closer. Chelsea, I never wanted. You never want a lot of things, she cut in. But they keep happening around you. Because of you. That's not fair. No, she said sharply. What's not fair is me walking into work tomorrow and wondering who thinks I'm with you because of money. He froze. I would never think that. But everyone else will, she said. Because that's the story your world understands. Silence fell hard. Junesio took a breath. I can make this go away. There it was. The sentence he didn't mean the way it landed. Chelsea laughed. Once. Broken. There it is, she said. The fix. The solution. The money. That's not what I meant, he said. This is my fault and I want to protect you. I didn't ask for protection, she said. I asked for honesty. I was honest. No, she said, eyes burning. You were careful. You controlled the parts that might cost you. That's not true, he said, hurt flashing across his face. I gave you everything. Chelsea shook her head. You gave me access. There's a difference. She reached into her bag and pulled out the folded paper, the one he'd written. I kept this because I thought it meant you saw me, she said. But now I'm not sure if you see me, or a chapter in your story. That's cruel, he said softly. So is this, she replied. He stepped forward. She stepped back. Don't, she warned. Not tonight. Junesio's voice cracked. Please don't walk away like this. Chelsea swallowed hard. I fed a hungry boy because he needed food. I didn't do it to become someone's destiny. I know, he said. And I love you for that. She paused. Then said the words that shattered him. I don't know if you love me, or the person you needed me to be. Silence. Junesio didn't chase her when she left. Because for the first time since he was a child, he didn't know how to fix what hunger hadn't broken, but power had. Chelsea walked home shaking. She didn't cry until she was inside. She unfolded the old note, the one she'd written as a girl. I believe in you. For the first time, she wondered if belief was enough. No leverage. No spotlight. Just truth. Silence stretched for 3 days. Chelsea didn't block him. Junesio didn't call. That was the worst part. Because this wasn't dramatic anger or slammed doors. It was restraint. The kind that meant both of them were thinking too much, replaying words they couldn't take back. Chelsea went to work. Smiled when required. Didn't check her phone unless she had to. At night, she reread the articles she'd sworn not to open. They all told the same story. None of them asked her. None of them mentioned hunger. Or cold. Or the cost of giving when you had nothing. They made it pretty. Chelsea hated that it almost worked. June SEO sat alone in his apartment, lights off, jacket still on. He hadn't slept. His team wanted statements. Damage control. Spin. Say nothing, he told them. I won't speak for her. That part surprised them. It surprised him too. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't try to manage the outcome. Because this wasn't business. This was the one thing money had no jurisdiction over. He took the old note from the drawer. Then the newer one, the one he'd written. He stared at both, side by side. One was belief freely given. The other was patience freely offered. Neither could be demanded. That's when he realized what Chelsea had been trying to tell him all along. If he wanted her to choose him, he had to remove every reason she might feel cornered. Including himself. On the fourth day, Chelsea came home to find a package outside her door. No logo. No courier branding. Just her name, handwritten. Inside was a simple paper bag. She froze. Slowly, she opened it. A sandwich. Peanut butter. Apple slices on the side. Wrapped carefully. Underneath it, no bow, no flourish, was a folded piece of paper. Not the old note. Not the newer one. This was different. She unfolded it. I won't explain you. I won't claim you. I won't protect you by speaking over you. If you walk away, I will stay quiet. If you stay, it will be because you chose me, not the boy, not the promise, not the story. I am here. Only as myself. J. Chelsea sat down hard on the floor. No gifts. No grand gesture. No solution offered. Just food. And consent. Her phone buzzed. A single text. June SEO, I won't contact you again unless you ask me to. This is me choosing you without asking for anything back. Chelsea stared at the screen for a long time. Then she stood up, grabbed her coat, and walked. Not because she was sure, but because uncertainty was better than silence. June SEO was at the old playground near Jefferson Middle. The fence was still there. Rusty. Bent. Ordinary. He stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, not pacing, not hoping, just present. Chelsea crossed the street. He didn't turn until she said his name. June SEO. He turned slowly. Didn't smile. Didn't step forward. Just waited. You don't get to disappear like that, she said, breathless. You don't get to decide that alone. I wasn't disappearing, he said softly. I was stepping back. She held up the bag. You think a sandwich fixes this? No, he said. I think it reminds us what never broke. Her throat tightened. You scared me, she admitted. Because for a moment, I thought I was just part of your origin story. He shook his head. You're not my beginning. You're my present. She searched his face. And if I never forgive you for the article? For the world knowing something I never meant to share? Then I'll live with that, he said. Without trying to edit it. Chelsea inhaled sharply. And if I stay, she said, voice trembling, it won't be because of the promise. Or the boy. Or gratitude. I know, he said. It will be because of tonight. And tomorrow. And the ordinary days. She stepped closer. You're still rich, she said. Yes. And people will always assume things. Yes. She nodded. I can live with that. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out the oldest folded paper. Her note. She placed it in his hand. This doesn't own us anymore, she said. It just explains where we started. He closed his fingers around it gently. Thank you. Chelsea took his other hand. Come eat with me, she said. At my place. Nothing fancy. June SEO exhaled, a sound like relief learning how to breathe. I'd like that, he said. They walked away from the fence together. No cameras. No headlines. No witnesses. Just two people choosing each other without proof. Love, chosen without witnesses. They cooked together. Not the way movies show it. No music swelling, no dramatic laughter. Just quiet movement, shoulders brushing, the soft scrape of a knife on a cutting board. Chelsea made sandwiches. Not because it meant anything. Because it meant everything. Peanut butter. Apples sliced thin. Bread toasted just enough to smell warm. Junesio watched her hands, steady and sure. You know, he said, I used to imagine this moment 100 different ways. She glanced at him. All of them dramatic. Most of them, he admitted. None of them right. They ate at her small table. Knees almost touching. No rush. No fear of scarcity anymore. After dinner, Chelsea reached into a drawer and pulled out a notebook, the old one. She flipped past pages of half-kept promises and stopped at a blank page near the end. She wrote slowly, carefully. Then she turned the notebook toward him. Stay. Junesio didn't speak. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded paper he'd carried for decades. Chelsea's childhood note. He placed it beside the notebook. Then we let this rest, he said. It did its job. Chelsea nodded. It got you here. And now, he added, I want what comes after. She studied him, really studied him. Not the boy. Not the billionaire. The man who had learned to wait. You don't get forever automatically, she said. I know, he replied. I'm not asking for that. She smiled softly. Good. Because I'm giving you today. That night, they didn't promise anything out loud. They fell asleep on opposite sides of the bed, hands linked between them like a bridge, close enough to feel, far enough to choose. Weeks passed. Quietly. Intentionally. They built a rhythm that didn't belong to anyone else. Morning coffee at her place. Evenings walking without destination. Arguments that ended in listening instead of winning. The world eventually moved on. Another headline replaced theirs. Another story took its place. And for the first time, Chelsea didn't feel like she was being watched. One evening, months later, they returned to the fence. Not for nostalgia. For closure. Junesio carried a small paper bag. Inside, 2 sandwiches. They sat on opposite sides of the fence, mirroring the past. I used to think this fence was what separated us, he said. Chelsea shook her head. No. It's what kept you alive long enough to meet me again. He smiled. They ate in silence. When they finished, Chelsea pulled a pen from her pocket and wrote on the bag. We're here now. She folded it and handed it to him. This one, she said, belongs to both of us. He took it, eyes shining. Chelsea, he said quietly, I love you. Not because you saved me. Not because of the promise. She waited. Because every day with you feels earned. She leaned in, forehead resting against his. I love you too, she said. Because you learned how to show up without taking over. They kissed, slow, sure, unafraid. No audience. No proof required. Just love. At last. Years later, on an ordinary afternoon, Chelsea packed lunches. 2 sandwiches. Junesio watched from the doorway. Still doing that, he teased. She smiled. Some habits survive. They ate together at the table they'd built a life around. No fences. No hunger. No debt disguised as destiny. Just 2 people who chose each other, again and again. Thank you for staying with this story to the very end. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you'll not miss out on the next video.